You're lucky to have me. Happy Thursday, everyone. So, while filming a music video in Nashville, John Bon Jovi heroically talked a woman out of jumping off a bridge. He did this by promising to quit making music. Yeah, that's a good one. Kamala Harris is flying to North Carolina to get the undecided vote, while Joe Biden is meeting with St. Peter to get the dead vote. Oh, I get it. More of those jokes. Democrat Jim Clyburn advises Kamala not to do more interviews because she could say something that might be used against her, like reminding them she's currently vice president. New York Congressman Jerry Nadler fell asleep during actual testimony from families who lost loved ones to illegal immigrant crime. But give him a break. He was up all night making lunch. On The View, Joy Behar tried to get pop star Usher to endorse Kamala Harris, but he wasn't taking the bait. The bait had already been eaten by Ana Navarro. How dare you laugh at that? In Minnesota, under Governor Tim Walz, 5 male convicts have been sent to women's prisons because they identified as transgender. I guess he identifies with people who claim they're something they're not. His was stolen valor, and theirs was stolen vagina. Stolen vagina, Dana.
Yep.
President Joe Biden posed with a Trump hat at a fire station in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, while in nearby Skanksville, residents asked Hunter Biden to put on a condom. That's just terrible. I think this is the last joke. Finally, the MTV Video Music Awards were held in New York last night, and pop star Katy Perry appeared sporting a temporary QR code in the small of her back. If you scan it, it says, "Welcome to our grand opening." Okay, so reviews of the debate are pouring in, and liberal cat ladies everywhere rejoiced. True, the debate got 5 stars from the makers of Fancy Feast, and 2 paws up, says Purina. The media, of course, says Kamala won, but why wouldn't they? They're so far up her ass they can see out of her mouth. It's like their parents watching their grown child hit a home run in T-ball. Look, honey, she made contact and didn't crap her pants. This just months after wanting her off the ticket. Those were the days. Remember Joe said he'd be a transitional candidate? He didn't know he'd be transitioning from president to fertilizer. But now they're so grateful. After all, she didn't pull a Biden. With a low bar like that, all she had to do was avoid shouting Allah Akbar or claim that Maroon 5 is an underrated band. Compared to Joe, it's considered a win that she didn't show up in the back of a hearse. Plus, the strategy of baiting Trump with hoaxes paid off. It allowed her to keep from saying anything about her past, present, or future. And it ticked Trump off. It helped that she had help, of course. You know, there's no way she would have so confidently rattled off those hoaxes if she didn't know that she had cover. It's like the drunk girl at the bar picking fights that she expects her boyfriend to settle. Except here, the boyfriend was the moderators. Luckily, this is one relationship where she doesn't have to worry about a pregnant nanny. Now, veteran GOP strategists are saying Harris won. But remember, these are the same geniuses who brought you the charisma black hole of Mitt Romney, who's so boring his dog asked to be tied to the roof. That's an old story. But how about voters? Remember them? You know, the people who actually decide the outcome of elections? Or at least the ones where Dems aren't counting the votes? Well, CNN, CBS, and Fox all spoke to undecided voters post-debate, and we saw a common theme emerge, much like a nude Steve Doocy from my birthday cake. They expressed serious reservations on her economic answers, and some found themselves leaning more toward Trump than Harris at the end.
He spoke facts. She just basically repeated everything that Biden has said in the past.
She didn't talk about her policy changes between 2020 and 2024, deflected on immigration, and didn't take responsibility or Biden's responsibility for letting people in illegally.
He was able to go to his track record, and I feel that Kamala just deflected the entire time.
While there was some focus on policy, I don't think that we really got to the meat of the issues.
My life was better when Trump was in office, and now with Kamala's administration, things haven't been so fantastic. And she's saying she can fix the problems that her administration has caused, but I just don't know if I can afford to take that risk.
And all of that despite the sense that Harris had won among the political and media class. The New York Times even admits as much. And when the Times says voters weren't so sure, it means we're our pants like Biden after judging a chili cook-off. Hell, even Reuters interviewed undecided voters after the debate, and out of the 10 sampled, 6 said they were leaning toward Trump, saying Kamala was too vague, a big ball of nothing. They're worried about affording gas and groceries, and she said nothing to allay those fears. And you'd think she'd be good at allaying, at least according to Willie Brown. I know. That was in bad taste. Fact is, voters remember she's VP the whole time inflation skyrocketed, and they don't like her, and they can't even afford the eggs they want to throw at her. And keep in mind, this data is coming from Reuters, and they lean more to the left than Dana Perino after a half a daiquiri. Glad that they used a stock photo when she's on the show. But you see the common thread? These voters noticed something the media wishes they hadn't. Kamala didn't say anything, which was the goal all along. Nobody learned a thing about her except that she's younger than Joe and can stay up past 9 at night. The only 2 qualifications you need to become the nominee. But that's how the Dems want it, and ABC News was more than happy to help. But even the voters who dislike Trump said they trust him more on the economy. So Dems can push a vibe all night, but they can't make you forget how traumatizing a trip to the grocery store is now than it was 4 years ago. And that was before the detergent was behind more plexiglass than a prison visitation room. People in the media can trick themselves into believing a fantasy. After all, the easiest person to fool is yourself, especially if you're already a fool. But they can't fool you. They can't make you pretend your bills aren't going up like Hunter's pulse after an 8-ball. They can't deny your bank account is shrinking faster than Jesse Waters at a nude beach. And they can't make you ignore the fact that the candidate they want you to vote for presided over this mess. Hell, maybe undecided voters are smarter than the hacks who keep lying to them. So who is she still remains the question. Too bad all the pundits in the world can't help her answer that. Let's welcome tonight's guest. She swims laps in a bathtub, co-host of America's Newsroom and the 5-Data Burrito. 9 out of 10 Americans could never spell her last name. Co-host of Outnumbered Kaylee McEnany. Even atheists consider him a sex god. Comedian Joe Mackey. And her new book is topping the charts while her pregnancy is giving her farts. New York Times bestselling author, Fox's contributor, Cat Tube. Dana, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's so interesting.
I don't even know what I'm asking you, but it's interesting. No, it's interesting that I will say that Kamala did a lot better than expected, but the undecided voters could see through that. They saw that, well, it looks good, but I don't remember a damn thing she said about anything.
Yeah, so about 80, if you take 67 million people watched it on television through various channels, including ours, of course. Then there was the streaming. So you get to about 80 million people that saw it. And what we're left with 2 days later is that the undecided voters are like, yeah, we didn't get enough out of that.
Yeah.
Trump saying he's not going to do a third debate. And a viral TikTok video about eating the dogs and eating the cats. And that's what we're left with at this point. So I think that there's still... It's still a tie. It's going to be a tie going into the next 6 weeks.
He just made a great point. If we just get the eating the dogs and eating the cats meme from this debate America has won.
We won.
Right? It is the greatest. It's when that happened, it's so organic. You can't create it, but they're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. I could listen to that all night. And I think I will. Kaylee, all right, let's be honest. You work for Trump. I noticed when you compare the debates that he does not change.
No.
He's absolutely, like people say, oh,
You're just noticing?
Yeah, what?
You're just noticing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So he doesn't listen to any advice. Correct. He won't. Does he listen to you?
He would listen to me at times. Yes, he would listen at times, but he knows what to do. I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is,
who he is.
do you think it would be wise to shift your sensibilities or your strategy when Kamala is so different than Joe? You know, Joe's a corpse. She's not a corpse. But he changed. He was completely the same person, and yet they say, oh, he was angry. He wasn't angry. Same guy. Shouldn't he just adjust a little bit?
Look, he could practice pivot points. When Kamala Harris lays an attack, tries to bait you, practice the pivot point. That's what we did before the second debate against Joe Biden. It really worked. He didn't need to sit down and have a mock debate prep. He needed game changers, and we made sheets of game changers to have pivot points. But look, Donald Trump is who he is. If you haven't noticed that by now, I mean, I don't know. I feel bad for you. He's brash. He's a fighter. He might send a tweet you don't like, but he is a fighter. He will fight for your grocery bill to come down. He will fight against Kim Jong-un. He will fight when it counts, just like he did against Kamala Harris. But what I took from your monologue is the sagacious Joy Reid, the erudite Jake Tapper, the ever so clever Brian Stelter. They might be wrong. They don't understand middle America. The best line I've heard assessing this debate is from 34-year-old Keela Miller. She's a black woman in Milwaukee who wasn't going to vote. Her quote very simply was this: I guess I'm learning more on his facts than her vision. Donald Trump has facts. He has a record. She has a vision, I guess. But you know who he is, and you know he will fight for you, and that never changes.
All right, I want to just comment on that, but you, okay, all right, fine, applaud. I'm assuming you're applauding for my next question. I still think, though, that if you think he's boorish and angry, you're going to think he was, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you're right, but I just think maybe he should know he's being played, that they were playing, they got him mad about the rallies, they got him mad about something else that they brought up, and if he just knew he didn't have to play that, but you're right, he's not going to listen to me either, and we're close friends.
I know you are.
I mean, we go way back, Joe. Joe, I've been looking at the data here, and they say most attractive women in America plan on voting for you. They're going to write you in, Joe. Is it because of your members only jacket?
I look very good, Greg.
I heard that you own the 4 remaining members only jackets, and you're wearing them all right now.
They sent them to me, Greg, because I'm a male model. The only problem is I'm not doing very well with unattractive women because I keep calling them unattractive women. But Trump and I are similar. We're both brash. We're both fighters. I'm more of a lover. But look, I think from a technical standpoint, I think how you could say that Kamala won the debate if you had the memory of Joe Biden. You didn't remember what it was like going to the supermarket and seeing the price of eggs or people falling off a moving airplane, but she had no substance. All she did was switch her word salad with a nothing burger, and I wouldn't eat at that restaurant or vote for that candidate. But I was frustrated with Trump because he missed so many opportunities to knock him out of the park. Even when David Muir asked him about the election lies, he should have had that queued up. He's like, well, intelligence agents lied about the Hunter laptop. There was government coerced censorship, and all you have to do is prove that the margin to victory was less than the margin of ballots that weren't legally cast, and you could have done that had he been allowed to do it.
This is, I guess, Joe is answering you, Kaylee, that I felt that he missed opportunities, and I blame you for that.
He needed pivot points.
Yes.
He needed to pivot.
I blame you.
Blame me, please.
Yes,
I
it's your
wasn't
fault.
there. So there you go.
Well, you know what, Kat? We've been talking about this mysterious undecided voter. Are we kind of underestimating their intelligence? That maybe they're smarter than we think?
Perhaps. I don't know. I actually don't know an undecided voter.
Yes.
I know a lot of people. I've not even heard
We
from
should
one.
find we should find an undecided voter.
I know they're
and
out
then
there.
Kill them.
I know they're
with
out
kindness.
there. I mean, so
Which is the name of my gun. Go ahead.
It wasn't. So a majority of people did think that she did better, not just the media. That's what the polls show. It was a slight majority, though. Actually, it wasn't that strong of a majority. But the vast, vast majority of people said this didn't change their mind at all. So it doesn't really matter. I do think that he definitely left some points on the table. I think what he could have just done over and over again is just said, okay, why did you not do that yet?
Yeah.
They really are running as if they're the opposition, which is crazy. Hope and change from somebody who's in office now is crazy.
Yeah.
And if I were a presidential candidate, which God help us, that's probably what I would have done. But he definitely got, flustered and not flustered, but irritated with. It was unbalanced, obviously, with the moderators. I think that was pretty obvious to watch. But I would just been over and over again. Everybody should still be bringing that up in any situation. Okay, and why should I believe you will do that when you have not done that in the past 4 years?
Amen. All right. What do you think, Joe? 3 blondes on the show, and it's still kind of smart. I don't care. What are you going to do to me? I got security. I'll throw anybody out that charges me. Okay.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.